Good morning, and welcome to the Mania Show. We are here to discuss all things neurodiversity, all things mental health. That is what the show is about. We are advocates. We do not believe that neurodiversity is a disability. We believe that it is a superpower or just some awesomeness, however you want to look at it. When we say superpower, we just mean that that is part of your strength, that is part of who you are. So I want to take a little bit of time at the beginning of this particular episode to specify that this is a safe space. So if anybody wants to say anything, even if you completely disagree with us, please jump into the comments. We will address you with nothing but respect and kindness, as long as you show us the same. So before we bring on our wonderful guest, who I cannot wait to have on, I do want to also mention our sponsor. So we have Therapy with a Wag. Puppy hugs and kisses are the best therapy. If you are in the state of Texas, my home state, you should definitely check out Therapy with a Wag. You will get a visit from Maslow Therapy Dog, that is also his Instagram handle, by the way, Maslow Therapy Dog. And he will come with a wonderful licensed counselor, Miss Michaela McCord, and they will come to your business, your home, whatever you need. So definitely check them out. They do travel. And anyway, not enough nice things to say about them. Maslow has actually been on my shows, by the way. Go out, check out Career Launch Live. He's been on the shows. So this morning, we are going to welcome a very special guest. And I say that she's very special because she started out as a viewer, and now she's going to be on the show with us, and we get to have her here. And I'm so very excited to welcome Miss Wonderful Kat Alexander. Hello.
Hi.
So how are you today?
Excited. I'm happy to be here. Really excited to talk about this, and thrilled that this is a moment that I never ever thought I'd have, to be able to talk about neurodiversity openly to a potentially room full of strangers.
Right.
I'm excited. And I'd like to say that it feels like I'm anxious, but I don't think this is anxiety. I think this is excitement. So
good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad. And I just, I'm excited to have you because I remember, witnessing a lot of these moments throughout my career, and even very early in my life, that moment when I realized I was comfortable talking about it and understanding that it's not shameful, it's not bad, it's not weird in a bad way. It just is part of us. It's just part of who we are, and it's not a big deal, honestly, in terms of it's nothing scary, right? It's nothing that you should be scared of. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of shame attached to it. I grew up in a culture where there was a lot of shame attached to it, and decisions about who you were as a person if people knew this about you. So
good morning, Jason. I'm right there with you, and I think what makes me sad is that a lot of people did grow up in a situation where there was a lot of shame attached. My household was not like that. Yeah. Somebody mentioned the shirt. Yes, I actually won this shirt. I made a bet that I had thank you. I made a bet that I had the coolest shirt, the coolest business card at a convention. Turns out I won that bet, and I got the shirt because of it. They weren't even giving them away. I'm very proud of that. So, but yeah, I grew up luckily in a home where it was not a stigma. It was not taboo. It was just part of life, and it was okay to talk about it and to feel safe with this. Mm-hmm. But most people didn't. And I would say, like, the places I lived did not feel the same way.
Yep.
Did not feel the same way.
And in every aspect of your life, right? There was this idea, I had this story in my head because of the way I grew up with this, that if anybody knew about it, it instantly separated me from everyone else. And I was different because of it. And I was less than because of it. And that if I said anything about, say, my ADHD was the big thing when I was a kid. I mean, the energy was just oozing out of every pore. and it still is.
I'm just oozing out of every pore, just energy.
I'm touching my face, I'm touching my hair, it's crazy. But now I can embrace that and enjoy that. But when I was a kid, it made you weird. And, teachers would look at you and say, if you just try harder, if you just do more, if you just turn in your assignments, if you just concentrate. Heaven forbid you should say something to a doctor, because immediately you kind of got labeled as, oh, she's got mental health issues.
Right.
This is a little
right.
crazy.
And I want to be clear, because somebody is asking. So apparently she missed the intro of the show. We are talking about neurodiversity.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah. That's what neurodiversity is. So neurodiversity is, and just so people understand what that means, it's any diagnosable or medically visible difference in how the brain processes information. So think dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, ADHD, bipolar disorder. There are certain forms of, actually basically all epilepsy falls into that. The list kind of goes on. It's a very broad spectrum. Autism is my favorite neurodiversity, to the point that I even partnered with somebody in my personal life that is, and in business that have autism. But anyway, go ahead.
Interesting is I found that for myself, I found it easier when I was describing neurodiversity. For people really seem to plug into the idea that 80% of the population are straight line thinkers. They're linear thinkers, right? If you're neurodiverse, you're thinking, you're wired differently. So it's kind of like this fun game of pinball in your head.
Yeah. It really is.
I'll have a thought and it bings over here and it goes, oh. And then I go, oh, but what about that? And what about over there? And that's part of what my neurodiversity does for me. It makes me very creative. It makes me an imaginative thinker, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
A good communicator, a good speaker, all those things that I'm sure linear thinkers do well too, but I can't, as hard as I try. I mean, seriously, I've got 2 pages of notes before this show, right?
Which I love. I love the quote over prep that a lot of my neurodiverse folks do. It's wonderful.
Right. Because what I've got to do is, it's not about the notes and having them to look at as much as it is about me putting a thought process down on paper that helps imprint it for me. Because I don't think in a way where I can remember step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4.
As the wonderful Perry Nopert, who runs the Octopus Movement, which is a wonderful movement about neurodiversity. Check it out. The octopusmovement.org. Yep. The octopusmovement.org. We are both part of that wonderful movement. He talks about linear versus nonlinear and the creative thinking that goes into being a neurodiverse person. And it's really exciting because every neurodiversity manifests differently and every individual with it. So, I watched a video a while back that said, if you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And that's just it. And it's true for everything.
It's very individual as to how it shows up, right?
Yes.
So, knowing yourself, there's a lot to be said for seeking the helpers, right? So that you can lean into people who know more about these things that are going on with you than you do. But then, and I did a post about this recently, but then there's also a lot to be said for self-advocating, for personal development, right? I mean, I've got all the books.
Oh yeah, learn.
Mind learning for dyslexia, super cool, right? So I have to do my part. I have to show up in this and do my part, but it's very individual. So
yes,
I've also sought the helpers in terms of a educational psychologist formal evaluation of my own neurodiversities, and
that's smart. Yes, the study is very smart of yourself. It's very smart.
I knew I was ADHD even when I was a kid. You could not know it. I mean, I was just. Anyway, so, but then I didn't know that I was dyslexic until 2007 when my son was being evaluated, because suddenly he went from this straight A honors student to struggling to pass his classes, and he didn't have the hyperactivity piece. So it wasn't so easy to spot, right? But he had both ADD and dyslexia. And when we went through his evaluation, I went, oh, that's me and what's going on here? Oh, I lost you. I can't hear you anymore.
I said we have a question about your fidget spinner, which I thought was funny. They're asking about. So that's a tool that you could use. Yeah, you can use the tool to keep you
Yep.
you focused. But I also want to hit on real quick, because I love to talk about fidget jewelry because I'm obsessed with it myself. But it's very, when you go through that process, so a lot of times people just think that they're weird, right? And that's where the title of this episode came from. Am I weird? Am I neurodiverse or am I just weird? Well, a lot of times both, but weird, it could be a very good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yep.
Different is a good thing. And we're just starting to really understand that as human beings. We're very new to this concept, although it's very scientifically based. So when somebody is going through the diagnosis process, it can be scary and it can be difficult. We just talked about this last week with Jessica. It's very hard sometimes because it can be something that other people perceive as scary. For instance, one of my neurodiversities is that I have bipolar 1. A lot of people are scared of bipolar because they completely misunderstand it. They have developed bias in their brain based off of what the media has told them, not based off of reality, right?
The culture they were raised in, right?
Yeah, and the culture that they were raised in.
And these are things, some of these things come part and parcel with other neurodiversities too. For example, with ADHD, especially if you're heavy on the H part, anxiety is very normal to have a physical disposition to anxiety, which means I have a responsibility to keep an eye on the things that I know are going to poke that with a sharp stick. Especially if I'm under a lot of stress, lots of exercise, lots of sleep. If my sleep quality isn't good, I need to be reaching out and saying that out loud to somebody.
And I want to hit on that too, both of those points. So number one, take responsibility to learn about yourself and what matters to you and what makes you tick. For instance, I've done several talks about how I managed for almost 20 years with my bipolar without any type of medication. And even now I only medicate when I have an extreme mania, extreme mania, because my mania has changed. And that happens, by the way, as you get older and your hormones change and all of that, your neurodiversity will, and your mental health conditions will adjust as well. Yeah, it evolves. Yeah, it evolves along with you. And so, I did that by learning myself. I participated in studies. I read. I charted myself. I literally made charts. And a good friend of mine, Nikki, who lives in Australia, did the same thing for a friend of hers who was bipolar, and she participated. She was her bipolar buddy. That's what she called it. And you should have a buddy for that.
That takes to do that. That takes a lot of courage because we don't live in a culture that necessarily embraces this. Now, let me preface that with saying yet. Because you're out there doing the work, and so many others that I've connected are out there doing the work, and so many big organizations are now doing the work. They're focusing on it in a positive way. They're helping people embrace it and opening a door for them to have a safe space to be authentically themselves, to be vulnerable and to be honest and to connect with others about this thing that not only is the diagnosis scary, just saying this is who I am, right? It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is.
But there are people that are opening that door and creating this safe space for us to be who we are and kind of removing that stigma of shame from it.
Yes. And that's the thing is
game changer.
It is a game changer. And the thing that I like to stress to people is even when your diagnosis is scary, like let's say it's antisocial personality disorder. What if it's severe autism? What if it's, and I say severe, and that's a term that a lot of doctors use to mean that, in other words, there's more physical impairments, that type of thing, or mental impairment. That's how that's used, or communication impairment, that type of thing. Sometimes the diagnoses can be scary, and especially if you don't know what to expect. So it kind of adds that extra element of, okay, now I have to learn myself and I have to deal with other people's fear response and my own fear response to this and learn what things actually mean. And so
that's what that is, though. That's self-care.
Yeah, it is.
That is about being being brave enough to take an action to take care of yourself. And it's also about your perception of it, right?
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this, like at first I thought, I don't know, an educational psychologist and a whole, someone's going to judge me or tell me I'm this way or that way. But really what I'm looking for is I'm seeking the helpers. I can take what I like and leave the rest from what the result is. And it's not just about being told, it used to be, here's what's wrong with you. What I get to hear now is, here's what's right with you.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And doctors do that.
They do that. And so
they go, here's what's wrong with you. Boo to you. Yeah. And that's not it.
And I don't know that they necessarily mean that. I think their intent is good, right? I also think that it's part of doing your homework to make sure that you're talking to a doctor who understands neurodiversity, who understands things like ADHD and dyslexia and so forth.
And I want to hit on that too. As you're going through diagnosis, as you are going through mental wellness care, make sure that you have someone who understands your diagnoses. For instance, not every mental health professional is strong in every mental health. There's no way that they can be, right? That's just not a thing.
That may take some shopping around. That may take some doing a little research and having some actual conversations with people on the front end of deciding to have them as your healthcare worker.
It is okay. And it doesn't mean that the person is incompetent. It just means that they don't have the strength that you need them to have. Right. And that's okay. It doesn't make them crummy, and it doesn't make you picky. It means that you're looking for exactly what you need to have. And that's important. Well, that's very important to do.
Part of that goes back to that word you used in the beginning, safety. Right?
Safety. Yes.
It has to be a safe space for you to have this conversation and walk through this process, because it's a process. It's not an event. And at the end of the day, I can lean into this and I can have the courage to do this because I know what I'm reaching for in terms of growth, right? There's no finish line here. It's just about growth. And if I'm going to grow, if I'm going to lean into taking actions in favor of my values, one of my biggest values is having the biggest life possible, right?
I love that.
And if part of having the biggest life possible means understanding who I am, so that if I want to help other people and if I want to help make a difference in this world, in this culture of neurodiversity being addressed in a positive light, I have to know how my ADHD and my dyslexia work for me, because it's very individual. I also have to know how they complement each other. And I also know how they work against
and how they headbutt, because they will sometimes conflict with each other. And I want to take a minute to make it very clear to everybody, because I have seen this comment more than once, and not on my show, but I have seen it in other places where people say, oh, this is just people with disabilities trying to make themselves feel better. So let's debunk that real quick. we're just, and this is this nice
thing. That's part of the thinking that I grew up with.
Yes. First of all, that kind of thinking, oh God, you just outed yourself in so many ways about so many negative things about yourself. But let's just debunk it. Let's just put it out there. There's science to the opposite of that. So there have been multiple studies. Okay. And I mean, just tons. And if you want to know the specific ones, message me after this. And I'm going to cite some of the companies who have, or some of the organizations who have done them: Yale, Harvard, Cornell, Drexel. There are multiple others who have done studies on this. Psychology Today has published multiples. Forbes has published multiple studies that show that a neurodiversity is not a disability inherently. Now, there are cases which that is the case, but it is not inherently a disability. And in fact, neurodiversity also comes with multiple positive symptoms. So the symptoms are not all negative.
If you want to focus on just one, even, let's say you're dyslexic, right? Just go out and look at Kate Griggs and all the work that she's done with her foundation.
Richard Branson, who owns Virgin Records.
She's partnered with EY. EY has done a whole study on dyslexia and the strengths of it, and how that leans into a future business culture where they need dyslexic thinkers.
So I wanted to hit on that, because there is a lot of confusion. People think, and part of that is, at least here in America, we have this whole thing called the ADA, American Disabilities Act. And under that, they have put just everything under the sun, and they mean it as a protection. right? They mean it as nobody can discriminate against you because of this, which yay, thank you for that. But then what's also happened is people have gotten it in their brain, and not just because of that, but that's one of the reasons, that these things are disabilities, that they are negative, that they are bad. No.
That they make you less capable.
Yes,
right?
just like being left-handed is not worse than being right-handed, or being a kinetic learner is not worse than being a visual learner, which is not worse than being an auditory learner. It's just differences in how somebody processes.
There are people that are doing good work around that Disabilities Act as well. Brian Gill, who I had a wonderful opportunity to visit with a couple of months ago, is doing just that with JP Morgan Chase Bank, and that organization is doing incredible work around neurodiversity and embracing it, shedding light.
Hewlett Packard is amazing, and their program has found a 30% elevation in productivity and innovation in their neurodiverse team versus the counterparts, which are the more linear thing. It's great. And we had somebody say yuck to the
way.
we had somebody that said yuck to the comment about how it's oh, it's just people trying to make themselves feel better. Yes, yuck to that. Yuck.
But again, it's about being able to be vulnerable. It's about being able to take courageous actions in favor of your values. And right now I could say, I'll talk about this one thing, and I don't talk about it much, but I know I need to talk about it more. And I plan on doing a post or maybe even a LinkedIn article about it. I don't like to talk about the fact that I have disordered anxiety. Really freaks me out because it exposes me, right? And the story in my head is that when people hear that, they decide she's fragile, she's not strong, she won't last.
And some people do. And some people do. Yeah.
Some people do. But the fact of the matter is that anxiety in particular is a big thing that comes part and parcel with other with neurodivergencies. It's just the body I was given, but I get to seek the helpers. I get to self-educate. I get to work on personal development. I get to ask anybody and everybody, knowing that we're all just people, right? To connect, to have conversations with them. It does not matter what level they're at. There's no better or worse. We're all people. We're all, humans. It's about the connection.
Yes.
Right. And this is about bringing neurodiverse people into connection with everybody who has been told that this is what normal looks like, and you fall into the normal.
Or you're weird. You're
weird, and you fall into the weird category. Hey, I'll take weird every day.
I'll take weird every day. I don't think it's bad. There's good weird and bad weird, though. Like, there's times that people do things and you're like, okay, what? Like, it just kind of makes you stop. Like, you can't. Why did you working in?
You say that way because I think it has a lot to do with our word choices too.
It does. Yes.
I don't view things anymore as good or bad. I don't have a good day or a bad day. I may have a challenging day. I have a lot of challenging days. But I can have a lot of really productive days too.
I feel challenged most days.
Someone taught me a while back, and it really stuck with me. There's no good and bad. There's only left and right. We get to choose a direction, take an action, and then we get to see the results of the experiment in that laboratory.
I don't
really want to go again or not.
I don't take it that far. I do believe that there's good and bad choices, that there are, like, for instance, if you choose
out badly, no question.
if you choose, to go around stealing from people, or, beating your spouse or your child or something like that, that's a bad choice, and you're a bad human. but
even then, I'm not sure. That's one of those things where we could talk a long time about that, right? I mean, it's just one of those things where I think everybody walks into every day with the best intent, and they don't necessarily show up in the way that they would like to. Maybe because they're scared. Maybe because they don't know how to control, not you can control feelings, but they don't know how to pause for a moment when they feel angry, whatever. But
that's on you. Life choices.
Behavior.
Life choices. For instance,
I agree.
What is natural to you may not be the best thing for you to actually do, but it's on you to control it.
Yeah, that's
and I never let people go. So I have had people say, and to me, of all humans, oh, it's not her fault. She has bipolar disorder. It's not his fault. I'm like, oh, yeah, about that. No, they absolutely do have a choice. They absolutely can control.
Yeah, you may not be able to choose necessarily your thinking when it first comes up or your feelings, but you can absolutely control what you do.
Your response. You control your response,
you can
your action.
Your response, exactly.
Yes, you control your actions. And actually, you can learn to control your feelings. You can learn, you can teach your brain, know when this happens, we should feel this, not this.
And you know what I call that? I call that the pause.
Yeah,
it's
that's
about
the pause.
Pausing and examining it. It's mindfulness, right? You're pausing it, you're taking a look at it, and you're going, I don't know, I'm not so sure I believe that, right?
And you do have to, as a neurodiverse individual, you do have to do some extra training with yourself with some of these things. When you have a mental health diagnosis, you have to take responsibility and you have to adjust. For instance, you know, one thing that I've talked about on a couple of shows recently is what it's like to have, you know, what it's like working with your partner when you have different mental health and neurodiverse diagnoses, and that you have to take responsibility for what you project on them. For instance, what should be expected of me is not what should be expected of my husband, and vice versa.
Sure.
And so it is not reasonable. For instance, part of his neurodiversity is he does not like to be touched. And so it would not be reasonable for me to expect X, you know, this X amount of cuddling or whatever, because that's not natural for him. Now, he also needs to know what I need. And he does, by the way, I just want to put that out there, and to compromise and to work with me. But that's a balance. If I just went off, I'm like, why don't you cuddle me all the time? You know, that's unreasonable. It's not reasonable for him. So part of it is understanding that what's reasonable for you is not necessarily reasonable for another person. For instance, I am not ADHD. It is historically, not in friendships, but in a professional setting, but a very difficult neurodiversity for me to work with when I'm having to train them. Now, if the person is managing me, fine. If they're on a project with me, fine. Having to train an ADHD person took me forever to learn, because
train a butterfly to stay
because it butts heads with my neurodiversity, but it was not an excuse. And I had to learn, this is not them, it's me. I have to learn to be more flexible to this human.
Yeah. At the end of the day, isn't it about our humanness?
Yes. And that's exactly it.
It's just a messy thing. If you can drop these expectations of perfectionism and getting it right all the time. I mean, I am a big proponent, and it's part of my neurodiversity, is that I see things at a very granular level, right? And I lean into process engineering kind of stuff. I'm kind of geeky in that way, but you know, other people, not so much.
No.
So, and sometimes it looks messy. I have to tell people, I have learned, I've got all these coping things, right? Before I ever even got to a place to where I'm looking for a formal diagnosis and I'm learning about things that will help me, like, you know, filters for reading and those sorts of things, you know, my little fidget spinner ring when I'm in something like this, or in a meeting that helps me sit still. And I have learned that those tools, are sometimes going to be messy for other people. Yeah. And then I have to approach that with a coping mechanism of saying on the front end, and I've said this to many a person who's managed me, even senior leadership, you know, I got a very Jackson Pollock kind of brain. A whiteboard wall, and I will blow your mind. I will either have you completely stressed out by the end of this meeting, or you're going to go, that is flipping genius, right? But it's messy. It's messy. And you have to be willing to embrace the mess and not be attached to what other people think or feel about it. Because I can't control what other people think or feel.
It's like I do the same thing. And I do the same thing in my mania stages. I'm like, get out of my way, because I am going to, it is like a freaking train just barreling down the tracks. Right? I am going to get to my destination. Get out of my way. Just let me do it. And it's very much the same thing. And you have to explain that to other people and help them get through it as well. That's also your responsibility.
Help them to know you, right?
Yes.
So that they can be engaged with you instead of feeling like they have to go, oh, God, back off.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Some people are that way. Some people are very introverted. They're like, you're too much for me right now.
And thank you, Joanne. Thank you. She said we're both emotionally intelligent. Yes, actually, and again, back to testing yourself. I had myself tested on emotional intelligence at one point. And I did. And I scored off the charts, like by a scientific organization. And it was because, and I thought, and that was linked to then how I'm able to process my neurodiversity and my mental health. So I thought that was interesting. And so now I want to tell everybody I think is doing it in a healthy way. I would like, go get tested. I want to see if that's a tie-in. I want to know this because now it's in my brain. My little nerdy brain needs to know this. Yeah. Maybe it's emotional intelligence that lets some people, process things in a stronger way and in a more effective way than, and maybe that's the difference. And so maybe that's something we need to be teaching other people, which I think you need to know emotional intelligence anyway, right? But maybe that's something that we need to be teaching other people, is that this will help you not just with others, but with yourself.
Exactly. And I think how it helps you with yourself is giving you, I like to call it peace from mind, not peace of mind, right?
Yes, that is exactly it. I tell people I need peace.
A story in our head about who we are and how we're showing up. Oh God, I talked too much. Oh God, they didn't like my energy. Oh gosh, this or that, right? We just make all these decisions that half of them probably aren't even true.
I will tell you the hardest thing for me, and I've gotten very good at networking and being in the public eye and all of that, and I know that, but it's still weird for me because despite what a lot of people have come to think, I am a naturally grumpy human. I am cynical.
What's super crazy about me is that I'm naturally happy. You used to drive
me there you go.
Crazy that I walked out of bed all happy in the morning. He's like,
oh yeah,
in the morning.
I would be like, I need you to give me like an hour, like get away from me. So you're like my pit bull, just like woohoo, let's do this. And I am my Siamese cat who looks at you like,
stop it.
Yes. What do you want? Yeah. Like, so it's taken a lot for me, but I enjoy being with other people, studying them, watching them. That sounds creepy, but it's also true. I like people watching. I like getting to know other people. I like getting to understand them, understand the psychology of other humans.
Okay, so if you like knowing that, then you'll like knowing this about me, because you won't believe it at first. I don't think you will. Most people don't. I am an introvert.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100% you are. Yeah.
It's so bad. I will dig a hole so deep and pull the dirt in over my head.
Yep. Oh yeah. Same. I don't.
Because I get very easily overwhelmed especially in big social settings. But the good news is that I recognize that about myself and I have some coping mechanisms for that, right? Yeah. I know what to do. And I've discovered just since, I did not know the term neurodiversity 8 months ago.
Yep.
This is 8 months new in my life in terms of that.
So how did you learn it?
Through you.
Thank you. I did not know that actually. Thank you.
About a year and a half ago, I kind of threw my hands in the air for the second time and said, I've got to change industries. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. And I called up my buddy, Jason Hopper, my career coach with Jewish Family Services of Greater Dallas. And I said, I got to make a change. We need to get to work. And he's like, good, let's do it. And so we spent 6 months kind of setting me up with this business model, if you will, for this career transition. The short version of a longer story is that initially I was pretty burnout from the position that I had been in. I had had a director's role in operations and it was way overloaded. The workload was way out of balance with any measure of success in that role, and not to the company. I think the company had the best of intents and they were doing the best they could. Right. It just didn't work for me. I was the problem, right? So I had to take some time off on the front end of that and freak Jason out because I said 6 weeks. He's like, what? But when I came back to it, I was doing all the things. I was even doing all the things in that 6 weeks to some degree. And he said, okay, now I want you to stop applying for jobs, answering ads, turn off all your job posting notifications. I don't want you to do any of that stuff anymore. And I'm like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to make a career transition unless I'm like applying for jobs, right? And he's like, no. He goes, I want you to go and talk to people. Go join these 3 or 4 network groups. And he said, start talking to people and organically things are going to start happening.
Yes.
And I kept mentioning my ADHD. And he said, you need to go talk to Katherine McCord. And I went, why?
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. And then you and I got on the phone one day and you said, figure out what you're passionate about, but you said it to me in a different way. You said, think about anything that makes you have an emotion. Does it piss you off? Does it make you sad? Those are the things that you want to lean into to identify what you're really passionate about. Mm-hmm. And you told me about neurodiversity, and I started following you. And then I ran into people like Margot Joffe and, the list is long. I could name so many
Isn't
names.
it amazing though how that happens? How when you focus on the things that matter to you,
it's like you buy a white car and suddenly every car is the same white car that you drive.
Yep,
right?
Yep.
Like
it just all comes to you.
Yeah. And so it was very interesting that once that door opened for me, once I even saw that door was there for me to walk through, I was just so incredibly grateful. My gratitude in this continues to grow by leaps and bounds, because never in a million years did I thought that I could go through my entire life. And, I'm cute, but I'm not young. And I'm young of mind, but I'm not 20 anymore. Let me put it that way, right? I'm 20 in my head, but I'm not.
I love that you're just so confident. I'm cute and know it. Know how cute I am.
The point is that at the end of the day, I have lived this relatively long life. I've got more life behind me than I have ahead of me, hiding and white knuckling my way through these challenges of my ADHD and trying not to get found out, right?
Yeah.
That had me living in a very small life. I was afraid to move, and this still gets really big for me today, especially in big times of stress where anxiety goes for me, right? I get boxed in and I feel like I can't take a step 2 inches in any direction or I'm going to get kicked clean off the cliff. Well, that's how I lived my whole life with this ADHD. And then when I discovered the dyslexia, I was too afraid to even learn anything about the dyslexia because I thought I'd learned bad things about myself, right? And I didn't know how to help my kids. I've got 3 kids who are neurodivergent, 3 out of 4. I mean, that's a lot. And they don't all have the same neurodivergency either. It's very individual. So, but when this happened, when you and I had that conversation and I started leaning in and learning more about this community, positive discussion and neurodiversity community that was taking place, but with professionals in an open, worldwide, global forum, right? Like, my life changed. It literally changed my life, because now I get to not only say, hey, everybody who's listening right now, you don't have to live like this anymore. It's not a good way to live. I did it for a long, long time and it never worked. It worked, but it was very limiting. It was very small. Now, and don't get me wrong, things happened 10 years ago that started walking me into a bigger life, started walking me into my authentic self, into vulnerability, mainly people. It really, at the end of the day, it all comes down to the relationships and the connection.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. And your tribe, I talk about that over and over and over and over and over again, but it's true. And when you find those humans that you can connect to, they make it so much less scary and they make it so much easier, more exciting and happy. Yeah. And I have a wonderful, wonderful community of humans. And if anybody out there wants connections to other octopuses, as Perry would put it, or other neurodivergent folks or neurodiverse folks, whatever terminology you like, please reach out to me. I love to make introductions. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm the ultimate connector. I will introduce you to so many people, you'll get tired of introductions if that's what you want. So but find your tribe. And I do want to say, so the title of this is, Am I Neurodiverse or Am I Just Weird? Well, maybe it's time to find out. Maybe take the time.
You're worth it. You're absolutely worth it. It's worth it. You are worth knowing yourself.
And I will say, that's a good quote. You are worth knowing yourself.
You're so worth knowing yourself. Everybody is. And there are people there that will help love you all the way through it.
That's right.
I am an excellent example of that. And now I'm running towards people to be the person that helps love them through it.
Yes. And that's beautiful. And I love hearing that other humans are focusing on that. And not that that is my number one focus, but that is such an important aspect. And I will tell you this, that if you think you might be neurodiverse, you probably are. I haven't met anyone who has thought that who wasn't. Okay. So
I'd love to, somebody's probably somewhere come up with some friendly questionnaire that says, let's find out some fun things.
There are. In fact, I have those. I have sent them to people that help you figure out, should you be tested for neurodiversity. And
but in a
every
positive
time,
way, right?
Yes, yes.
It makes you feel like,
yeah, oh, no. But it's just, it's so very important to, when you have those feelings and you feel out of place. If you feel out of place, you probably are neurodiverse. Most people who have that feeling, that is the case. And it's really interesting to me that the more you get to understand yourself and the more you meet other people who are in the neurodiverse community, even if they have different neurodiversities than you, it's amazing how you start to grow and change, and your mind just completely, when they say, open your mind, I don't think a lot of people know what that actually means or feels like or looks like. I do. And I know you do. And it literally is like you have just walked out of a dark room out into a beautiful field full of flowers.
I can give you a good example of that. So I was sitting here last night and I was thinking about this dichotomy between dyslexia and ADHD, and where, like, how was it before and how is it now? And the difference is what you just said, dark to light. So with, I organizing my writing, forgetfulness, anxiety, what else did I put down here? Oh, I can't pick my own family out of a crowd. Seriously, I can walk into a room where my dad is in that room and I can't find him.
No.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing. But what it does do is, if I get to this place of self-discovery and of personal development and seeking the helpers, because, you can't fix self with self. There are people with experience in these things that can help you learn how to take these. Like for me, I'm a wonderful storyteller. I write really good stories. People will come to me and go, I need for you to wordsmith this. I need Kat's wordsmith on this. But it takes a lot of effort for me to get the great story in my head down on paper. I'm a good speaker, but when I go up to speak, there's a story in my head that, you're going to die from the anxiety of this. It was funny because I went to do I was speaking to a group a while back, and I was talking to my son on the phone before I went. And I said, my luck, I'm going to get up there in front of the podium. And I'm going to have all kinds of anxiety and pass out right there at the podium. And I don't know if it was, what do you call it? When you think something and think it into being. So I go to get up to the podium, and I'm standing there, and thank goodness there was a podium there, because I'm hanging on to both sides of it. And I get this pain in my head, and I'm introducing myself, and the words are coming out of my mouth, and I've got a smile on my face. Hi, I'm Kat Alexander. And while the whole time I'm thinking, well, if I drop dead right now, at least I'm in a room full of people that'll call an ambulance for me. It was just right. That's the anxiety of speaking. But if you're seeking the helpers, if you're getting in there and finding the things that are challenging, people can teach you how to work through those things that are challenging, so that you can get to the other side of it and use those superpowers for good.
Yes.
And not shrink away from them and live in this very small box.
But to grow into them. And I will tell you, the people that I've watched take the journey that Kat and I are talking about have ended up as board advisors, as executives, as project managers, as running a charity. I don't know what you call it, like a founder or whatever of a charity. Yeah. Extraordinary.
Excellent example of that.
Oh God, yes. Yeah. Perry's remarkable. And he teaches others. You could become a teacher. A lot of people become teachers and kind of dive into the education aspect of it. And that's so beautiful. And it's so wonderful. And so for anybody,
that's just leaning into your authentic self. We were all meant to do certain things, and we were given the strength to do those things. But that doesn't mean that we weren't given barriers to work through to make us better at doing those things that we can do really well.
And we are at the end, way past the end of the show, actually. We are. So we are going to wrap up.
Just in case you didn't know, I've got ADHD. I like.
It's okay. It's okay. And actually, I decided to let this episode run long to kind of illustrate that sometimes as neurodiverse folks, we can't always fit in a box. We can't always fit into a 30-minute box. We can't always fit into, this is the exact script, the way this conversation is going to go. We derailed so many times, but it's okay. It's okay, because it makes the same point that it's valuable. We have both found success because of our neurodiversity specifically. And if to anybody out there that wants to find your community, that wants to know if you're neurodiverse, that wants to make a connection, reach out to me. I will help you find the resources. So will Kat. We will do anything that we can to be of assistance and to support you. Join the Octopus, the Octopus movement. Be an octopus. It is the octopusmovement.org. Beautiful, beautiful movement run by Perry. Also, again, I do want to mention our sponsor. By the way, nobody pays for sponsorship on this show. These are all things that we actually believe in. And our sponsor is Therapy with a Wag. So if you are in Texas and you want to have a puppy come visit you at work, or if you want to have therapy sessions that involve a therapy dog, please reach out to them. They do travel. And again, that is at therapywiththewag.com. So thank you everyone very, very much for joining us. Next week,
Katherine.
Thank you for coming, Kat. Next week, same time, same place. And check out our website to find out the subject of each show. Thank you. Bye, everybody.